Welcome to Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. All right, let's talk about something that every single one of you has felt. Maybe you felt it this morning before you even got out of bed. That thing that grabs you by the throat when you least expect it. A tone of voice, a certain look, a memory you didn't ask for. And suddenly, you're not in the room anymore. You're somewhere else, somewhere that feels like danger, somewhere that feels like pain. We call them triggers. And for most of us, and I mean most of us, because I've been there too, we spend our whole lives white-knuckling through them, managing them, coping with them, trying to stay one step ahead of our own emotional landmines. But what if I told you those triggers aren't your enemy? What if I told you that they are actually your nervous system trying to protect you, based on emotional lessons it's learned a long time ago? And that modern neuroscience, 21st century neuroscience, has given us a way to go back in there and actually update those lessons, not just manage them, not just survive them, but erase them at the level of the brain. That is what we are talking about today. My guest has been in the trenches of psychotherapy since the late 80s. He's held a scalpel and a boardroom gavel, served as a hospital VP before dedicating his life to healing the human mind. He holds 4 graduate degrees. Yes, I said that right, 4 of them, including a doctorate in pastoral counseling and psychology. He's trained in EMDR, brain spotting, internal family systems, the deepest, and I mean the deepest, most powerful tools in the therapeutic world. And he just released a book that I believe has the power to change your life. It's called Living a Trigger-Free Life. And it is not another self-help book with tips and tricks. It's actually a roadmap grounded in neuroscience for actually rewiring how your brain responds to the world. People, please give a warm, go all in welcome, Dr. Brian DesRoches. Dr. Brian, welcome to the show. It's an honor, my friend.
Thank you for that. Just that very comprehensive. Really, my arm here was standing on end. That was so well elocuted. I just really appreciate it. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I'm excited. You know, I tell the guests this all the time. We talk offline. Nobody gets to hear that. So I'm excited, right? And we're going to have fun today. So before we get into the science, right, in the book, I want to start where we always start, right, with the human being behind the work. So you spent years, right, as a hospital administrator, a VP of a multiple hospital corporation. Then you walked away from all of that, right, to become a psychotherapist. Most people go the other direction. What happened inside you that made you choose the harder road?
I realized that what I was doing was I had to pretend. I had to pretend so much, pretend that I was good at it. But inside it was like really empty. Yeah, and I felt like a fake.
Yep.
I felt like, and I had I had all the accoutrement and all the tie and the office and the car and everything.
Suit and tie, everything.
Man, and
your nice little watch, I bet you.
Yes. I remember 1 year after I took the position as vice president of a multi-hospital corporation, I've had it. It was about 1 year, and I walked into the president and said, I'm finished. I'm done. And she told me, it was a Catholic hospital system. She told me, you can't do that. Well,
I did.
I have to do it, because if I don't, I'm going to die. I just can't do it. And that started a transition that was probably 3 or 4 years in the making. And there was a lot of other things going on in my life, marriage that didn't work, and just all the stuff of life that one needs to work through.
As I like to say, you were lifing, right? And people ask me all the time when I say, what do you mean life? And I go, it's divorces, it's struggle, bills can't get paid, right? You got to work the extra hours. All of that, right? The stresses of life.
Yeah. Some of those stresses, what's interesting, your introduction said it well. Many of those stresses are based on very early emotional learnings or emotional lessons that we didn't agree to acquire, that the brain acquired, and those learnings get active. Those are the ones that become our triggers. The exciting thing is we can now actually change those, as you said, deep in the synaptic level of the brain for the first time. Before it was always, remedial and soothe yourself afterwards. But never the kind of work, and it literally is called memory reconsolidation. That's the formal neuroscience term for it. I just knew I've been practicing it now since 2015, and it changed my life in
Yeah.
profound ways. Changed so much who I am as a father, who I am as a husband, who I am as a friend, who I am as a therapist, who I am as a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Oftentimes, I think that gets lost, right? People don't take it, the human being aspect of it, right? And that it's not just you, learning all this and doing it yourself, right? You're also your clients, like you said, a better dad,
Yeah,
a better husband, right? It just makes your life a whole lot better, right? And so,
yeah.
Doc, I know you mentioned about, we get caught up when we were younger and we learn those things. At what age does that happen? Would you say is it between 2 and 6, 2 and 8?
Actually, it happens from the moment of birth, and some researchers would say prior to birth in the
Okay.
womb. That's not an area of expertise of mine, but from the moment of birth, a child, a baby, experiences feelings and emotions. They cry. I like to watch babies because to me they're like cosmic child, and before they've had to adapt to the world, to the human world. And so day one, up to about 7 years old,
Okay.
those years right in there, and then those learnings get reinforced as a result of our interactions. We actually come to believe that that's who I am. I'm not enough. If I say this, people are going to get upset with me. I'm going to be rejected, I'm going to be abandoned. I'm very, very painful. And to a child, life-threatening experiences that to an adult aren't life-threatening, but they feel like it.
Yeah. It feels like the end of the world, right?
The end of the world. The end of the world.
Yeah.
I have stories in the book, one about myself. Fortunately, that trauma is gone. I can look at it now and smile. But there was a time when I look at it and I would freeze up right away.
Yeah. Yeah. You look back at the past, right? You go through so much and there's so much that you think that defines you, right?
Yep.
But it doesn't, right? And you
No.
can free yourself from it and
And may I add, it's not just what you think, it's what you feel that
feel.
defines you.
Yeah.
It pains me much when I hear people say, I'm just not enough. I'm just not acceptable. And I totally get it. Been there and occasionally still do that
Yeah.
because I get triggered, but I know what to do now. I know, hey, wait a minute. This is not now. This is all the past being reactivated.
Yeah. Yeah. I oftentimes live that way, right? Woe is me. Everything happens to me. Right.
Yeah.
I got such the worst luck, right? My wife left. Now I'm divorced. The girlfriend left. I'm not good enough. I'll be single forever, right? So you feel bad for yourself. You start running through everything through your head. And I think people, and I say it, Doc, quite often on the show is that you never know, right, what anyone's going through in life. So show up, right? But treat people with kindness and respect and love, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're having a bad day, hold the door for the young lady or the young man behind you, right? Give them a smile, ask them how they're doing, right? Just make one person's
Couldn't,
day. And if you can make one
couldn't agree
person's
more.
day, that will create a wave, right? And a ripple effect of that one
It
person
does.
smiling,
It does.
and
Yeah.
making the world a better place, not just for you and me, but for everybody else.
Yeah, there's a process called emotional influence where we influence each other's emotions. And a lot of research been done on that at the Brain Math or Heart Math Institute in Colorado.
Okay.
And what you're talking about is that ripple effect. And that is a real phenomenon in our nervous systems. It's not
Yeah.
some, woo-woo kind of thing. It's very practical, very real, and very important.
Yeah. And it seems like it's just something so simple, right? Of just greeting someone in the morning with a smile. And I think, like I said, life you get to life and right, as I say, and you're grabbing your coffee in the morning, right? You're in a bad mood. You may be late for work, and so you take it out on everybody else.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're taking it out because we're late, right? And the only reason we're late is because we made ourselves late, right? And then you learn that you can only control yourself, can't control,
Yeah.
others and outside influences. So Doc, right? You've been in private practice, right, since the '80s. That's over 30 years of sitting with people, right, in their most vulnerable moments.
Yeah.
What has that done to you, right, as a human being, and how has it shaped who you are today?
That's a great question. One of the first things I would say, it's taught me a lot about compassion and about our shared human experience in the sense that no one is immune to pain and suffering.
Yeah.
We're not. And the invitation to, you talked about earlier, smiling, for example, the invitation to be present and compassionate
Present.
rather than fix somebody right away, which is our tendency. That's once again a protective mechanism that we learn. Got to fix because we're uncomfortable. Being compassionate, being understand, listening. And I still practice learning how to listen.
It's a big one.
Still learning. I'm still learning.
It's a big one. I just started doing that at 41, right? I learned a hard lesson in life, and at 41, right, that's one of my biggest things. Like you said, I always try to solve everyone's problems, right? And
Yes.
when I did a deep dive into myself and what was going on in my life, and realized that I'm the root problem, right? But I can fix that.
Yep.
But
Yes,
the
you
big thing
can.
becomes, with people in general is that it's on you, and it's one of those things of listening. Like you said, I say it often, right? And I used to all the time. I could be having a conversation with anybody, right? Because I deal with hundreds of people and phone calls and
Sure.
emails and everything else. And I'd
Yeah.
be at home with, say my ex-girlfriend or my ex-wife, right? And I would be sitting there eating and they're talking and I'm just acknowledging, and they say, "Hey," they shut the TV off. "I'm talking to you." And I say, "Oh, I was listening." "No,
Yeah.
you weren't." And I can sit there, Doc, and repeat every word they said back to them. But you know what? I wasn't present.
You weren't
I
present.
wasn't really listening, right?
No.
All that I was doing was just regurgitating what they were saying to me back because I was so attuned, right? Just to, all right, and then spit it back and everything's okay. I'm listening. Nope. So now I'm present in every conversation I have, right? And some people may say it's intense, but I'm present because I'm there. It's like reading a novel, right, Doc? And you're waiting the next words to come and you're so fired up,
And I can understand some people may experience that as being intense because people aren't used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where, I was just recently in Italy. I was traveling in Italy. And one thing that really struck me, was they don't use cell phones there. People are
Really?
having dinner.
Yeah.
Everybody, we went to all kinds of restaurants. No cell phones. The kids aren't on iPads. They're playing in the streets and the piazzas. Everybody's talking and schmoozing.
Present.
Nobody's on their phones.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a difference. What a difference.
What part of Italy were you in?
Pisa,
Okay.
Cinque Terre, Assisi, Florence, and Orvieto, and Sardinia.
Beautiful. I'm going to Vico Equinese in July. I'm going for 12 days.
It's
right on the coast.
Yeah, you're going to love it. And the thing that really struck me, and they have the same problems, challenges that we have as human beings, but they don't use this as a distraction.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the number one biggest thing. Cell phones.
Yeah.
Instant gratification for people, right? I was saying it the other day in a little thing I was doing on social media, right? The first thing you do is you pick that phone up. You don't even say, if you have a girlfriend or wife, roll over and say, "Good morning, honey, how you doing?" Nope, it's right to the phone, right?
Yeah.
Distraction right away. And that has to mess with your nervous system, right? That has to throw you off,
does.
right? You're going through all the news. There may be a
does.
shooting overnight, right? Or something happened in the neighborhood. And it's already, your heart's already racing before you're even getting out of bed. Your mind's already racing before you have even started the day and your feet have hit the ground.
Right.
And
it almost puts us in a trance.
Yeah.
It's like a trance. It's like we think of trance as like when somebody on stage and, you're going to act like a donkey now or something. No, a trance is an altered state.
Yeah.
And it alters our state. So, and that's one of the things about it, because it alters our state, we don't have to feel what's going on.
Yeah. So true. So true. Because you just have a false reality in front of you on the phone. You can scroll through, you can see beautiful pictures, you can see, kids riding bikes, you can see people, quotes of the day, you can see everything, but not what's in front of you because you're not paying attention. And that's the big thing, being present. And like I said, I just learned that at 41. And it's one of the strongest things and the best things that I've learned, because being able to come home, shut down, shut off to the outside world. I don't even really watch TV anymore. And I used to be a news, CNN, right? I say it all the time, CNN, Fox, at night I'd be clicking back and forth, listening to all different perspectives.
Sure.
But I tell people all the time, if you really want to, we're not going to get political, but if you really want to know what's going on in politics, go on C-SPAN and watch C-SPAN. I tell people. People ask me all the time, why? Why watch C-SPAN? I said, because when you watch the news tonight, you're going to get a 20-second clip of some politician that said something crazy, right? But when you go on C-SPAN, you can listen to his whole speech and listen to what he was talking about. And it could have been a 5-minute speech, right? They took 20 seconds out of it and twisted it around.
I hadn't heard that. I thought that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's awesome because, I'm down in DC, not quite often, but enough. And so I've learned to see what's going on with politics on C-SPAN, right? You'll see debates on there. You'll see, the Republican side, the Democrats, they always meet. The House leaders always have a press conference. You can always see it, but you're going to hear it from them, not from a clip, not from a soundbite,
Right.
but from them. My friends often make fun of me and say I'm an 80-year-old guy watching C-SPAN. I don't care, because that's where you get that's where you get the real news. That's where for me, that's where you get the real politics.
That's the real time stuff right there, not the filtered stuff.
No, exactly. And for people that do like politics, watch C-SPAN, and you'll hear. And there's great people on both sides of the aisle, and it's a tragedy what's going on in politics today, but 250-year birthday coming up. We're going to celebrate it. We're going to get through it. We're the greatest country in the world. The democracy, is stuck a little. We're spinning our wheels, but we're gonna get back on track, and I can feel it. So Doc, right? What do the people who love you say about how much you've changed from, since you started the practice?
I had a friend that was last year. It's been a friend for a long time. We had a barbecue and we started talking. And when we finished the conversation, he looked at me and he said, Brian, he said, I have never had anybody be present to me like that. And that experience, that feedback, I get it from my wife, I get it from my kids. And so I'm always asking myself a question. And the question is, how do I want to experience myself right now? How do I want to experience myself? Not how do I want you to experience me, but how do I want to experience myself? Do I want to be in a frustrated state? Do I want to be upset? Is that what I want for experience for myself? That question usually ends up helping me change my state, be more aware. I don't know if many people are going to say, well, I want to experience myself as angry and frustrated. I would, I mean, some people I can get that, but that's hard on the body, the nervous system, the inflammatory. It takes
Everything.
years off your life and life off your years.
Yeah.
It's so I've been really, even before we started, thought to myself, how do I want to experience myself in this podcast?
Yeah.
And because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I
don't
tell the
know.
guests, right, and the listeners know, everybody that comes on the show, right, nobody gets questions. Nobody gets questions. So it's almost like as I like to say, it's raw, real, and it's authentic. That's why I don't give the questions, right, because I find it better for the guest and for myself to be able to,
Yes.
not hit you with aha moments, right, but hit you with some questions where you have to think about it, not come with a textbook
And
answer.
I really appreciate just your question asking me. It's a very personal, intimate, and open question, and a very important one. But, and in fact, just thinking about the answer was really like, that's a great question.
Yeah, makes you think.
It did, and I went back to what I was aware of with that friend.
Yeah. And that must have been powerful for you after stepping back from that conversation, right, Doc? And saying,
It
wow,
was.
how
It was.
present I was, right? Because
Yeah.
oftentimes, like I said, even like me, when I would listen to people go in one ear and out the other, I can regurgitate it back, but I'm not present, right?
Yeah.
But now,
yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
I show up and people are like, wow, you're intense. It's, oh, I'm waiting, right? And I've learned, right? It's how we show up. Other people will receive it. It's how you talk. Other people will receive it. It's not all about. I used to show up like a slug almost, right? Like shoulders down, down and out, like shitty day. I'm down, I'm out. And people, they don't even want to talk to you. They don't even want anything to do with you. It's how you carry yourself.
That behavior that you're talking about, Jimmy, that behavior right there, that's a very interesting protective mechanism. And people don't realize that the behaviors we do, the conflicts, the reactions, the withdrawal, the avoidance, the people pleasing, the accommodating, all of these that take people, like 34 million people last year in psychotherapy, all of these, vast majority, are protective mechanisms.
Yeah.
That are protecting us from that early learning that we acquired, that we don't know we acquired. It feels true.
Yep.
But it has no basis in reality. So we tend to live out the past, constantly recycling the past in the present, which then creates our future.
Yeah.
It's I wrote the book because I really wanted, the term trigger, we all get triggered. I was like, wait a minute, triggers are just emotional learnings. That's what they are.
Yeah.
They're in our brain. They're just down here, as a matter of fact, right?
Yeah, it's like a download in the brain.
It's a download in the brain that we can identify the threat. And what they're talking about is because it's a threat prediction, it produces anxiety. But the threat maybe never existed, number one. And number two, it's in the past. It could be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. I mean, I have clients in their late 70s, and they are still working on being more expressive, being more open, taking risks to connect with people rather than living in the fear of, boy, if I say something, do something, if I tell people who I am, they're going to reject me.
Yeah, they're not going to like me.
They're
Yeah,
not going to like me.
yeah.
It's such a human experience.
And it's powerful, right? Because each person is different. Each person's unique, right? And
Yeah.
like Doc, what you were saying about me, right? When I was walking around like the slug, right? I
Yeah.
noticed, right, others that they would avoid me, and
Sure.
in large part, right, I deep down inside I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to be bothered, right? So I think more of as people were like, oh, I don't want to talk with them, the more I would just carry that on because I was
Sure.
achieving my goal, right, of people not interacting with me or talking with me because I was in that state. And the brain itself, it's such a powerful thing,
Let me ask you, if I may
fascinating.
ask you a question about that,
Yeah, go ahead.
that avoidance. What you're telling me is there was a threat that you probably weren't aware of, that if I'm open with people, if I'm present to people, then something bad is going to happen to me. I could be judged. I could be betrayed. I could be criticized. I could be shamed. And so that behavior, that avoidant behavior, achieved one goal, but it kept you safe, if you
Yeah,
will,
correct.
from
Yeah.
feeling the old feelings from a long time ago and kept you stuck.
Yeah.
And I hear that's changed for you. I hear that
It's changed, yeah, and I say it, right, Doc, that, when I was younger, I was quirky, I was geeky, right, and I was out there, I was strange, I was different, right, but everybody was always telling me, don't, "You can't say that," or "Don't say that," or "Don't
Yeah, there it
express
is.
yourself," or so
There it is.
I just continuously just pushed it
Yeah.
down, right, and
Yeah.
then as I got older, 15, 16, 17, 18, different groups of kids I was hanging with, right, they would tell me
Yeah.
this, they would tell me that, right, I'm not good enough, or "You gotta do this to hang
Or
out with us."
you feel they
So
were telling you that.
true, feel, correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I adapted, right? And I changed, and then I got into a marriage, and it was hectic and crazy, and but I was always inside. I was always changing, right? I was always becoming the chameleon. And like I said, I went through an event where I lost my girlfriend because of the big thing, like you said, triggers through my anxiety and depression and my triggers that
Mhm.
everything triggered me. Good
Mhm.
morning,
Mhm.
how you doing? That would trigger me. Everything triggered me. So
Mhm.
she left, and I had to do a deep dive and look myself in the mirror and say to myself, right, what kind of man do I want to be? What am I bringing to this earth, right? And who am I? And I thought back of that quirky kid that was always told, don't speak up,
Wow.
don't voice
Wow.
yourself, right? So
Yes,
I
yes,
said, you
yes,
know what?
yes.
I'm getting my voice back. I'm taking my voice back from when I was a
That's
kid.
wonderful. I'm
And
getting my
and
voice
I'm
back.
getting my
Wow.
voice back, and one of the biggest things too, Doc, was when I was telling a friend of mine, I fell in love, and the kid looked at me, and he said, "What does she look like? Is she beautiful?" And I go, "No, you're looking at him." I fell in love with myself. I finally found the love for myself, right? And then, Doc,
Yeah.
I was able to look myself in the mirror, forgive myself
Yeah.
for my past, forgive others,
So
and
important.
now live this freeing life of just trying to enjoy every second, right? But bring joy to people, but not overextend myself and not go crazy and not people please. Just be me, my true authentic self of who I am.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most freeing things. My anxiety gone, my depression
Yeah. Yeah.
gone, everything, and it's such a powerful thing for people. And, I've had, therapists on and other, and they tell me to find your purpose, to find, at 42, 41, that's awesome because sometimes people find it in their 50s, 60s. Some people don't find it at all, and so we're going to get to the book, right? So in 2015, right, you had what you described as a pivotal realization, right? That what you
Boy,
in the
shift.
entire field, right, believed about emotional healing was incomplete. For me, right, that is a bold statement for someone 3 decades
Yeah.
into the work, right? So walk us through that moment. What did you see that you hadn't seen before?
Well, I went to this workshop in New York, and it was about some of the new neuroscience memory consolidation. When therapists go to workshops, typically what happens is you practice on each other, the procedures and the processes and everything like that. or there is someone that volunteers. Well, I had the wonderful fortune of being the volunteer. I was asked to be the guy up front in front of, 50 or 60 other therapists. And it was a blessing because for 10 years prior to that, and what I worked on was procrastination.
Yeah.
So in the 1990s, I published 2 other books, Reclaiming Yourself, about codependence, and Your Boss is Not Your Mother.
Your boss, not your mother, yeah.
Yeah.
Great
But
title.
and I wanted to write after that. I had some other ideas. Jimmy, I couldn't write. And the reason was, what happened is when I wrote my second book, they asked that the book be rewritten. I felt it was a criticism of me. I'm not good enough. I'm not a good writer. No, they just wanted a different format. They love the content, but I felt that way. And so my brain learned writing and shame are connected.
Connected. They go hand in hand.
So next time I go to write, I sit down, and all of a sudden I'm anxious because my brain is predicting if I write a book, I will be shamed and rejected. Now, I didn't know that. So for 10 years, I did therapy. I did EMDR. I bought a brand new computer twice, brought a fancy blue pen. I went to writing retreats. I did everything you could possibly do to fix me and my procrastination. But I went through that weekend, took that deep dive underneath the anxiety, found out what the threat was, and then when I could identify the threat, then I could introduce to the brain correction information, a prediction correction. Wait a minute.
Almost
That
like a
is not
reboot.
what happened. It is. It's a deep reboot. And I came out of that with a whole different experience of myself. And when I got back to Seattle on Monday, I started writing again. And I'm in the process of writing another book now. I've got this one that was done. That to me, really, when I began to see the power of introducing a prediction, because the brain is always predicting, whether conscious or unconscious. It's a prediction process. If I can use to the brain information that corrects the threat predictions, then it updates it. Literally, the brain will update itself because it's survival biased. So, hey, it goes, what I learned is not right. I have to update myself. And the brain updates itself. And so the triggers start to reduce because the threat's not there anymore.
Yeah.
It's not there. It's so unbelievably powerful.
It really is. And so let's break this down, right, for the everyday person listening right now, right? What actually is a trigger at the neurological level, right? Because most people think it's just an overreaction. They think it means they're weak, right? So what is a trigger at the neurological level?
So let's imagine just a brief scenario. Let's imagine a little boy, 3 years old, 4, whatever, but a little boy, and he really wants his dad's attention. Which is understandable. So he kind of goes to his dad, and his dad is busy. He's working on projects, or his mother in the kitchen, and no ill intent meant by the parents. He goes and they say, no, I can't now. I'll get to you. I can't now. Understand it's life. But the child learns that asking for what I want is associated with rejection and feelings that I don't matter. Just like that writing and rejection got associated for me. So let's say that happens, and it's a pattern that happens once, but it's a pattern. That little boy becomes a young man, becomes an adult who has learned, whether he knows it or not, if I ask for what I want, people will reject me and they will ignore me. That's very painful, very painful. So if he's in a meeting, or he's with a girlfriend or whatever, and he wants to say, hey, let's go out and do this. The moment he does that to express what he wants, bingo, the brain goes threat, based on what it learned. And that is the trigger. The trigger is the neural network in the subcortical regions of the right hemisphere in which that information is stored as associative learning. Ask for what I want. I'm rejected. I don't matter. And we have I could go through just numerous, in the book I do, numerous examples. Very common. Once an input comes in, somebody asks me, hey, what movie do you want to see? And I go, well, I can't tell you what I want because you'll reject me. I feel it. It feels true because it felt true before. It feels true. Even though I might say in my head, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
You're right. But it feels true. And the feeling drives the behavior. The trigger is that learning that gets activated, that activates anxiety, the signal of a threat, that activates protective behaviors, anxiety disorders, and many, many forms of depression, withdrawal, avoidance, conflict, people pleasing.
Yep.
I know this imposter syndrome well. I was raised in an alcoholic family. A lot of shame. Boy, you really had to be, you hid yourself.
Yeah.
You hid yourself because you didn't want people to see the red stain of shame within you. That isn't the case anymore, as it isn't the case for many, many of my clients and many people that have just said, hey, I'm using the steps in this book. And my God, it makes so much sense because it does.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. I
can't
hope
wait.
that answered your question. That's kind of a
No.
long.
No, it did. I can't wait to get my hands on the book myself. So, Doc, right, a follow-up. So what would you say to the person, right, who has spent years beating themselves up, right, for their emotional reaction?
The first thing I would tell them is what you're doing is not a character flaw. Yes, it's a problem, but it's not a character flaw. It's not something wrong with you. You're doing what your brain wants you to do, what evolution-wise it has learned to do, and it must do. You must beat yourself up. You must do that because that's the way the brain is protecting you from deeper pain. I would offer compassion, and I would say, and you can update your brain. You can update the learning. You can, as you said at the beginning in the introduction, you can change, transform at the synaptic level in the brain and free yourself from what I call emotional tyranny.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
in that emotional tyranny, right, tears apart so many people. So many people.
So many relationships.
Yeah, relationships, friendships, mother and daughter, father and son. There's so much that it
I'll
tears
go
apart.
even further and say that war is the outcome of emotional learnings. The
Yeah.
conflict in a family it's just big. And so we see this, we see it.
Yeah.
And now we can do something about it. It's just a different way of thinking. Instead of trying to overcome our problems, battle your demons, overcome them, it's the exact opposite. You engage the problem to understand what the real cause of it is. The learning that is the trigger that drives the symptoms that you want to fix. And that's a hard shift for people to make,
That's
to go
tough 'cause
from
so,
overcoming and battling. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's usually taking that old, old memories, right, and old feelings and pushing them forward
Yeah.
when you're going through the situation, right, when you're going through that conversation and
Yeah.
you feel it, you feel it deep down inside. And that was, for me, was rejection a lot.
Mm.
And, rejected as a
Yeah.
teenager. And so I just,
Yeah.
basically suited up, put that armor on and became whoever they wanted me to become, out myself. And
How wise, and part of it, there's a wisdom there. There's a wisdom in the brain that protects you from that suffering, just like the immune system protects us from pathogens. It's very, very similar to the pathogen is the emotional learning, the trigger, and the immune system, the brain, the emotional brain goes, that's too painful. Let's do a protection. And when
Yeah.
people realize that, I know for myself, Jimmy, when I look back at all the things I had done, all the behaviors I had done that were very maladaptive, I can see underneath it the first 7 years of my life. And it's not about blaming my parents. They had their own emotional learnings to deal with.
yeah.
I mean, it's blame is a protective mechanism anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I blamed the world. I blamed everybody for my problems until I realized
there
that
you
my
go.
problems were created by myself, right?
Yep. And only you can change them. Only you can transform them. Yeah.
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 Yeah, nobody else can. And so, Doc, right? The old model, right? The one that's been dominant in therapy, right? And coaching
Yeah.
for decades says cope,
Yeah.
manage, develop better strategies, right? But your book says
Right.
that's not enough. Why not? What is the difference between coping with a pattern and actually erasing it?
If I'm coping with something, I'm actually paradoxically strengthening because I'm ignoring I get activated and I'm learning to cope with it. Okay, I'm going to cope with it. I'm going to think, I'm going to think positive thoughts. So what happens is the negative gets associated with the positive. And sure, I'm going to think positive thoughts, but you still walk around vulnerable. You have to constantly be monitoring yourself. You have to constantly be on alert You have to constantly be, God, I'll get through the day. I'll go, whoa, a nice bourbon after this would feel good.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with nice bourbon. But if you use it as a way to treat yourself, to resolve the anxiety, then that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. So we have this overcome. And I'll tell you, the primary reason that it's there, this new neuroscience was only found out maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. It takes
So
a
it's
long,
fairly new. Fairly new.
it's very, very new. And in a profession that has been very stuck in a model of overcome, it's going to take decades for
No
this,
doubt about
I
it.
believe, for this way of working, because it's so contrary. It's what Thomas Kuhn, it's a paradigm. For me, it was a paradigm shift. Huge. It was like, where have I been? Well, where I've been is in a paradigm that was based on what we knew about neuroscience. Therapists were doing their best based on what was available. Now the neuroscience tells us there's a whole different way, And that's why I wrote the book. I wanted people to see, hey, there's a different way to live and deep change and to make enduring transformation, not just temporary, which I did 17 years of therapy myself. And I'll tell you, I learned how to cope and I learned how to give relief to myself. Nothing ever changed.
No, nothing. It kept you almost spinning those wheels of not, of being stuck and sometimes maybe going back to people,
Well, I always
places,
thought it was
situations that you shouldn't.
something was wrong. There must be me. Something
Yeah.
must be wrong with me. And
Yeah.
I was a therapist at that time. I'm still working. Something must be wrong with me. That's the only thing no, it wasn't it. It was the, if you will, the paradigm I was operating out of and the other therapists operating out of. Yeah.
So, Doc, right? What does it feel like, right, in a client's life when an emotional pattern is actually updated versus just managed?
I have a client coming to mind right now. Okay. And I can tell this story, obviously not the name, but, it's a dentist. And I work a lot with dentists around the world. I just in my coaching practice, and he worked hard, very, very successful. And having a hard time retiring. And what he realized is where will I get the showing that I'm the best? I'm the best. And I said, well, how do you do that? He said, well, I really did this and I do this and I do this. And you're very good at what you do. There's no question about that. And you're in the top 2% of dentists in the country. No question. But if you keep doing this, you'll never be able to let yourself enjoy the fruits of your labor. And he said, but I can't, because if I do, that means I'm not enough. So wait a minute. If I don't get accolades and recognition, that means I'm not enough. Is that right? Yes. And when he discovered that, when he discovered that, I usually find when people discover the threats, the first thing they say is, that's crazy. That makes no sense. You're right. It doesn't. But you learned it a long time ago when it did make sense.
Yeah.
But now an adult, it doesn't. And usually there's a sigh of relief. There's oh my God, I wish I'd known. Usually I remember one client, several clients going, well, like me, when I was like, it was like waking up, like, where have I been?
Yeah. Where's this life been?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So a big thing in your work, right? Memory reconsolidation, right?
Right.
This is one of the pillars of your work, right? So for someone who has never heard of that term, give it to us in plain language, right? What is happening in the brain when memory reconsolidation occurs?
Great question. So when a memory is formed, it's called memory consolidation. That is the network, all the connect together. So you get a neural network that consolidates. Now, when you introduce a stimulus into say somebody says something, you want to do something, introduce a stimulus that activates that neural network of learning, then it deconsolidates. It opens up. No, it doesn't open up. It just gets activated. It doesn't open up. So if you want to update it, you've got to unlock it. So the way to do that is you activate. So we've got this consolidated memory that tells me no matter what I do, I'll never be enough. And if people find out, they'll laugh at me and I'll be shamed and I'll be rejected and I'll be all alone. Okay, not an unusual learning at all. It's right back here. So I'm in a meeting and somebody asked me some questions, a business meeting. And all of a sudden I feel the tightness in my chest, like, oh shit.
Here we go.
Okay. So what's happening is that network just deconsolidated, it activated. if I can simultaneously introduce to my brain something that contradicts that prediction, if this, then this, such as, hey, wait a minute, I've done a lot of presentations. I know my stuff. I can handle this. And I can become very curious, which is a mature truth for most people. They can, so I'm in this state, very negative. I know what the learning is, and I introduce this truth simultaneously. The brain recognizes what the threat is versus what the reality, the truth is. It then opens up. It unlocks, literally unlocks that neural network, unwires it. It's now open in a very open state. This new information comes in. That unwired state lasts for 5 hours. So for 5 hours, I have an opportunity to remember, hey, I handled this problem. I did this well, and I can do this. And whoa, I've done, hey, listen, I've told my friends things I want and nobody rejected me. And you can update it. And then it reconsolidates after about 5 hours. So it closes back down, it reconsolidates with the new information. So you've updated it. That stimulus comes in again in the next business meeting, and you might get a little niggle, just a little bit, but then if you remember, but at that point in time, because the learning has been updated, there's no threat.
Yeah.
The threat is gone.
The tightness in the chest is gone. The
It's
anxiety is
gone.
gone.
It's totally gone. And you feel the difference. And one of the things that people say is when they start using this, they realize, wow, I don't feel that anymore. That tightness. I don't feel my heart racing. I don't feel the fear.
Yeah.
The anxiety. No, you
Yeah.
don't. Because the threat has been updated. It's not there.
It's not.
Yeah. And that's the science of it. And it is so phenomenal. It's so fun. I mean,
Yeah, it's so interesting that it opens up for that 5 hours where
it stays
we
open.
can almost relearn and adapt to that, and take it in before it closes again. And Doc, I used to say, right, with my anxiety, it used to feel like, and I used to say it quite often, is when I had anxiety, which was every day, all day, most of the time, I would wake up in the morning, right? And this is how I explained, because someone asked me, how do you explain your anxiety? And I said, well, it's waking up in the morning with 12 bricks on my chest. And throughout the day, right, sometimes I'm able to remove all of them. And I go home and I feel great, right? Feel like $1,000,000. All the bricks are off my chest. And then I go to bed and I wake up the next morning. But guess what? Those bricks are back.
Back again.
And that day I may be able to get 2 of them off or none of them off, right? My chest feels heavy and it's tight.
It's a powerful
every
metaphor.
situation.
Yeah.
And now, right, when I wake up, I used to fear almost going to sleep, right, on those great days where there was no bricks left on my chest because I knew what was coming in the morning. But
Wow.
now being able to wake up and with clarity and no bricks on my chest, it's like it's a freeing, right? And it's almost like, what can I accomplish today? What can I do today? Because before it wasn't concentrating on anything except getting those goddamn bricks off my chest. And
and they would occupy your brain, their energy, and
all day.
All
day. Yeah.
Yeah. So you did for yourself what I describe in the book. And the book has drawings. I actually have drawings of the brain and what happens to illustrate it visually.
Yeah.
But you did, whether you know it or not, you did memory reconsolidation work.
Yeah, it's like that. That's why I said to you, I get my hand on the book and read it because it's so interesting. It sounds so much of what I had experienced and was going through. And so I can't wait. I can't wait to read it. And
actually, Uncle Jimmy, I'll tell you, many people actually experience this.
Okay.
But now we know the neuroscience behind it.
Behind it, exactly. Yeah.
What accounts for that shift? We now know what accounts for it. What happens at the synaptic level in the brain that you can intentionally do it now, not by accident or hope or, but intentionally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome to even hear that, in the neuroscience, it's changing, right? And that there are professionals like you, right, that are reading up on it, that are focusing on it and educating the people about what's going on. And that's the best thing, so Doc, right? Why is this such a game changer, right, compared to what we had before?
Because for the first time, rather than just treating the problem and the symptom with medications, for example, the epidemic of anxiety and depression disorders among young people in the country, and the fact that, medications, not to say that they play a very useful role, but they don't treat the cause of the problem. That many people go to psychotherapy and they're disappointed and they think it doesn't work. Well, it works, but it works to develop strategies, as you said, to manage the problem
To manage,
or
to cope,
to
deal.
to alleviate the distress afterwards, but not to change the cause of it for
Yeah.
the first time.
The cause of
For
it's
the
still there.
first
It
time.
still exists.
It's still there and it'll get triggered again.
Yeah, no doubt about
So
it.
for the first time, we actually have the clear neuroscience about, and I have it as 5 steps that you can do to update the learning that are the triggers that cause the reactions and cause the anxiety, that cause the problems that drive us to psychotherapy. We actually can do that. And it's enduring. It's not just, oh, I feel better today. It's enduring transformation.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't happen overnight, but sometimes it does.
Yeah. Yeah,
It can.
Yeah,
It can happen overnight.
Yeah.
It can happen overnight. You don't realize what's happening until all of a sudden, oh, I feel different about that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
You know,
Well,
Doc, I had learned that I knew something was up, right? When
yeah.
I'm not an early riser, and I started doing sunrises once a week, getting out, getting my coffee and watching the sunrise.
Hmm.
And probably after about the third one, right, of like 3 weeks, I was like, I go, there's something going on, right? And because I'm not an early riser, like I live 10 minutes away from work. So if I can get up at 7:30, I have to be on work at 8 o'clock in the morning. So if I can get up at 7:30, brush my teeth, throw on clothes and get out the door, I'm there. So for me to get up, at 6 in the morning to go see the sunrise, it's like, okay, I'm feeling great, right? Something's going on here. This change is coming. This change is brewing. And I just realized that it was, mindset shift. Also, being free and being able to see the world right now differently than I ever have in 41 years of my life, and seeing the beauty of it, seeing the beauty in the moment. And it was quite ironic because I would sit and drink my coffee in the morning and watch the sunrise over an island, in Boston. We have the Harbor Islands, but it was Thompson Island, which is where I went to middle school. So I was looking at that, staring up the memories of being a kid over there and watching the sun come up, and it was awesome. It was powerful. And I tell people, if you go through, transformation, for me, I did 16 years of talk therapy. And when I couldn't get to the, the root, the cause of the problem.
Yeah, no, there's no, that's
surface
right.
level.
That's,
And, so for me, it snapped and inside. And I realized that, again, taking accountability, being present, so many things that I never did in my life that I have to do, that I do now, that I practice now. Cause I don't just practice, I just don't, tell everybody, oh, I do this. I practice what I preach. And being present is one of the greatest gifts that I've gotten, because every conversation is from the heart. Every, good morning is from the heart. It means so much. And even for those people that don't, receive it well, and it's okay, because you know what, they could be having a bad day, they could be going through a lot, and you know what, too, Doc, they may not be used to it.
They may not be. What you did, if I look at it through a neuroscience perspective, what I see is that the threat of rejection, but rather than let that threat of rejection drive your avoidance and your withdrawal, and your pretending and all that stuff that we just talked about, you didn't let that threat drive you. What you said was, I'm going to be open.
Yeah.
I'm going to, and your experience of that was that it was safe. In fact, it was good. You liked it.
It was freeing.
It was freeing. And so here we have the experience of freeing in contrast to the experience of being trapped, stuck in this threat of rejection. When the brain, when they're activated and you bring in this freeing experience in, the brain recognizes, what I learned is not accurate. I need to update myself.
Yeah.
And it does it. And the fruit of that is your continued experience of that. That's, in essence, that'd be my first hypothesis of what you did for yourself. We can intentionally, and we now have the formula
to do it,
and the science that supports the formula, if you will, to do that, to actually do that.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Doc. For me, it was open, right? In being able to receive, open and receive, right? In communication.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing. And like I said, I love it now, the conversations that I have. And it's so funny sometimes, like people, even like sometimes like a good morning to somebody turns into like a 15-minute conversation where people are like, hey, I'm having a great conversation, but I got to get to work. I'm like 10 minutes late, but have a great day, right? Have a great weekend on Fridays. And just to see people get, just so excited just about a simple, conversation of, hey, good morning, how you doing today? And people really open up and they talk, and it's awesome. It really
It
is
goes back to the connection.
the connection, correct? Human connection. It's
And when
awesome.
you were in your lurchio, hanging, whatever that was,
Yeah,
the connection was a threat.
yeah,
It was a threat. And so now you've got like, wait a minute, I'm going to monitor my state. And when I feel a disconnect, then I'm going to connect because it is not a threat anymore.
it's not a threat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doc, it feels like, from, when I was younger, right? About 12,
Yeah.
13, 14, right? Where I was open, going, talking to everybody, talking to
Yeah.
and then I just started eventually just closing myself off,
Yeah.
closing myself off for so long. I used to say it, the only safety I had in my life for quite some time was the four walls of my, apartment. It's the only place I felt safe, right? I would hate large crowds. I would hate, you know, uh, just everything in general, and I got to some dark places, right? Very dark places
Sure.
through,
Yeah,
not,
man. I understand.
not taking care of my mental health and my well-being,
Yeah.
and
Right.
almost my health too. My health suffered. I got up
Sure.
to 300 and something pounds. I'm on a weight loss journey now. I've lost close to almost like 120 pounds. So there's so much that you really don't think when you hear anxiety and depression. I think a lot of people brush it off now. Is oh, it's so common, everybody has it, right? But the deep side of it is that depression and anxiety, you can get real dark. You can go to real dark places and deep
Yes,
places
you
that,
can.
you know,
Yes, you can.
and I don't wish it upon anyone, Doc. The
Oh,
dark
I don't
places that
either.
I've been in. It's great guys like you that do the work, right, to help people out. And as I say, guide them, right, guide them along the path of life. And you're almost like one of those shepherds from the Bible, right? As I say, one of those shepherds that's shepherding people towards the light, and
Thank you.
trying,
Thank you for that.
trying
Thank you
to,
for that.
enlighten them that,
That-
you may have some dark moments, right? But you can't have dark days. And I say it
Thank
now,
you.
I try to be the light, right, Doc? The light for somebody in the darkness. And I tell them, call me, text me. I mentioned 988. I talk about it quite often. It was a helpful tool for me, at 3 in the morning when nobody's up and awake, to give it a text or a call. So 988's the crisis and suicide
That's
hotline. You
right.
can call
Right.
it or text it 24/7. Someone
Yeah,
will answer, someone will text you back. It's a powerful thing. So
it is. And it's very important because our protective mechanisms can take us to some very dark places.
yeah,
It's paradoxical, but it's very coherent
yeah,
that the very thing that is our pain is our protection.
yeah.
And that's a tough thing it's a tough switch. It's a tough switch,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, Doc, I found, right, that when I opened up to myself,
Mhm.
I was able to open myself up almost essentially to the world.
Oh, yeah.
When I did
Yeah.
that, when I
I
when I
Yep.
when I did that deep dive and opened myself up, it was almost like you
Yeah.
said, almost simply like that 5 hours where it's open, right? And I was open, and then it just, when it's closed, it was like, okay, that's the new me, right? That's
And you
that's
feel
me.
it. You feel the
I
shift.
feel it. I feel it.
It's not just here. You
No,
feel it in
I
your
feel it.
body.
I feel it in every person, right? And I'm not talking about the podcast. I'm just talking about everyday life. Every
Yeah.
person I meet on the street, I feel it. Whether it's sometimes the homeless guys or girls, right, that always ask for money, and I refuse to give them money, but I tell them, come on inside, let me get you some food. Come on inside, let me get you a water. It's hot out. Let me get you a Gatorade, right? And I can feel it. I can feel it in their voice, right? I can feel the
Wow.
despair, the dark places that they're in. I say it. People aren't living on the streets because they want to, right? They made a decision maybe that they got into drugs, and I feel a lot of times mental health plays a big part in people being on the streets.
I agree.
It's not just the drug problem. I think, the drug problem plus mental health on top of that, it
Yeah.
compounds, and it makes it a lot, that person, in a very dangerous state of mind, right? Not that they're a dangerous person, but they're in a state of
Dangerous
mind that's
state of
very
mind. I agree.
dangerous.
That's
Yeah.
a great way to put it. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. We see it here in Boston all the time. And, I do this special train on the weekends, and the lady gets rid of the food at the end she has a cafe car, and they have sandwiches, breakfast sandwiches, and they throw them away. So Sunday nights, I oftentimes, probably look like Santa Claus with a bag of sandwiches, and I drive around and hand them out to the homeless after my shift, just because, the food's going to go to waste. And, if they can, they need a meal, they need food. So, some of them will be like, hey, can I get yeah, you can have as many as you want. Right. And because for me, it was
Well,
going in the trash,
that's beautiful. You said earlier, you talked about my role as a shepherd of people. What I hear is you're feeding people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with the podcast, you're doing it too. You're giving into people, and that's I
Yeah. And I'm
feel.
openly, right, doing it, Doc, but feeling it, right? That's the thing. It's
Yeah,
the feeling
yeah.
of
It's the feeling.
before, Doc, I used to give, and it was giving because I was like, oh, yeah, I can give, and I felt great about it. But now I feel it, right? I feel that person that needs that sandwich, right? I feel that young girl that is living in the streets needs that water, right? Because maybe she hasn't had a water
Yeah,
in the day, and
yeah.
it's powerful, right? So I know you've trained, right, in some of the most powerful modalities, right, in the therapeutic world. EMDR, right, brain
Yep,
spotting, internal family systems,
yep,
even coherence therapy, right?
yep, yep.
So how do these fit into the neuroscience you're describing? Are they all working on the same thing from different angles?
That's a great question, and my response would be deep transformational change. The process is the same. There are different ways of doing it. Brain spotting does it one way, EMDR, especially around implicit emotional learning. EMDR is great for explicit memories. I've learned it in 93 and I use it still because sometimes the explicit memories can be pathways to the implicit learnings, but the explicit memory is blocking it. I tell my clients, let's loosen your brain up a little bit. Let's loosen the memory network up a little bit. So we do EMDR on explicit memories. Then we can go deeper into the implicit or the unconscious, because these are unconscious learnings,
Yeah.
into the unconscious memories. But the process that explains deep transformational change is the neuroscience of memory reconsolidation. That's how the brain, at least at this point in time, in terms of research, that's how the brain is able to we can help the brain make fundamental deep change.
Deep
Whether it's
changes. Yeah.
EMDR, IFS, in terms of very, very powerful, very helpful to do it. The protocols are maybe different, but the intent of introducing to the brain a prediction correction while in the activated state, and that is the key right there.
Yeah. In the activated state. Yeah.
It has to be in the activated state.
Has to be. Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to be feeling it to heal it, if you will.
Yeah. You got to feel it. Exactly.
Mhm.
And so I want to ask you something personal, right? You wrote Reclaiming Yourself back in 1990, right? Your first book.
Yes.
It was
First book.
translated, right, into 6 languages.
Your boss is not your mother was translated into 6 languages.
Okay. Sorry
Yeah,
about that. So
yeah, no problem.
what were you trying to reclaim in yourself back then, right? And how is the work you're doing now different from who that author was 30 years ago?
Wow.
You can tell, Doc, I've had 16 years of therapy, right?
It's a great question. I was trying to reclaim a kind of a ground sense of myself because I had so many defenses. And I wrote it because I'm codependent myself. And I began to really practice and do some things. In my practice, I was using these skills. If I were to rewrite that book now, it would be the same book, but totally different.
Yeah.
Because everything I would do would be to introduce the memory reconsolidation process. And the exercises are very powerful. They're very good, but they're mostly counteractive and overcoming and distraction, and then calm and soothe yourself after you've been activated. Because that's the way it was then. That was the neuroscience. That's just the way it was. It couldn't be any different because the information wasn't there.
Wasn't there, exactly.
Wasn't
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And like you said, you learned that in 2015. And it's one of those things where it's always, evolving, right? It's always evolving. And like you said, though, the problem will be, because it's so textbook, therapy and all that, that it's going to take years for this to
It's going to take years. I
catch
mean,
on. Catch on.
the talk therapy model is a big one,
It's a big one.
and
Yeah.
it's dominant. And
Yeah.
I totally get it. More and more practitioners are doing neuroscience-based somatic therapy, experiential therapies, getting in touch with the feelings and emotions. There's much more of that going on. And that's being informed. That gets to memory reconsolidation or living a trigger-free life.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple more questions, right, as we wind down, right? So
Sure.
if someone is listening right now, right, sitting in their car, at the gym, even lying in bed, right, staring at the ceiling, and they recognize themselves in this conversation. They know their triggers are running their life, right? What is the very first step? Not the whole journey, but just the first step they should take.
To recognize that the problems and the symptoms they're dealing with, the behavior problems, no matter what they are, and for the most part, most depressions and the anxiety that's driving them, all of those are protective mechanisms that the brain is doing because of where we are in terms of evolution. That they're, once again, yeah, and you said it earlier, you had to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
To first realize, wait a minute, I'm not doing this intention. My brain is doing this because it's doing its job.
Yeah.
It's doing its job.
Yeah.
I don't exactly like the job it's doing, but it's doing its job. And because it's protecting me from pain, suffering
From such a
that
young
I
age.
acquired. And so, yeah, it really, and that'll be first thing. And the second thing is to realize there is a pathway. There's a doorway. This is not magic. There's a scientific process that can enable that person, whether that person is driving a car, laying in bed, whatever they're doing, and realize that there is a process that can update those learnings, unconscious learnings that are driving the problems, and not just fix the problem, because they don't get fixed very well.
No.
That'd be the
So,
first thing I would recommend.
Yeah.
Is be aware this is not a fault. It's not a character flaw. Secondly, there's a pathway. There is a neuroscience pathway that you could change your brain at the synaptic level.
yeah, you got that 5 hours, right?
Yeah. You just got to create that 5 hours.
You got to create that 5 hours. You got to feel it. You got to be in it. So,
Yeah.
Doc, where can people find living a trigger-free life, right? And where can they connect with your work and learn more about working with you?
I have a website, although I have to admit I'm very busy, but Amazon is in digital and print format. It's not an auditory format. It's not conducive to being an auditory audiobook. Goodreads. Some clients have just gone to the local bookstore and said, can you order this book for me? And they'll get it, and they can get it sent to them with their
I'm
distributor.
excited. I'm excited to get mine. I'm going to order mine tomorrow. I can't wait.
Thank you. I think,
So-
yes. Yeah.
Last question, Brian, right? I ask this of every guest. If you could go back and hand one sentence to a younger version of yourself, the kid who hadn't yet figured out any of this, what would it say?
This may sound strange, but I would say to him, little Brian, be aware. You are a human being, but you're also a divine being. And you will come to know, feel, and experience that throughout your life. And in that divine nature that you have, you are perfect. You are enough. You are love in and of itself. You are so acceptable and so accepting. That's what I would tell that young man. And I would tell him, be patient. The learning will come. And along the way, you're going to have some challenges, some trials, and some tribulations. But remember who you really are, a spiritual being with a divine nature that is incarnated and delighting in this world and enjoying.
That's awesome, man. Doc, I want to sit with that for a second, right? Doc, you just gave us something, right, that most people spend years in a therapist's office searching for, right? And he put it right here in your hands. Here's what I want you to take away from today. Those patterns that keep showing up in your life, the way you shut down when someone raises their voice, the way you shrink in the room when you feel like you're not enough, the way you explode or disappear or self-sabotage right when things start to go good. That is not who you are. That is a protection system your nervous system built when it didn't know what else to do.
Exactly.
It was trying to keep you alive and it did the job, but you're here. But you don't have to keep living inside that old protection forever. That's the gift of this science.
Yes.
That's the gift Dr. Brian gave us today. The brain is not a stone. It's a living tissue. It can learn. It can update. You can go back into those old rooms where those lessons got written and you can change the story. Not by gritting your teeth harder, not by white knuckling through another year, but by going to the root, updating the code and living free. I am not here to sell you on a perfect life. I'm here to tell you that you were not built to be a prisoner of your past. You were built for more. So everybody go get the book, Living a Trigger-Free Life by Dr. Brian DesRoches. I'm putting the link in the show notes. So buy it, read it, give it to someone you love, because the people around you, they're fighting these same battles quietly, alone. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for them is hand them a door. That's what today was, a door. Walk through it. Walk through it. Let me say that again, everybody. Walk through it. Doc, I appreciate that, brother. I hope you had a great time here today.
I did. I delight in the experience. The experience I had with you was more than the experience that I contemplated. It was just delightful. It was engaging. It was fun. It was me really thinking about some questions that I hadn't thought about.
That's
And I
awesome.
just appreciate that so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate. Thank you.
And I appreciate everything you're doing, right, Doc? As I like to say to people, it's almost like you met Uncle Jimmy today. It's like sitting there with your uncle, and you get to
Yeah.
have those conversations, right, that you need to have. And I believe this is a conversation that we need to have, right? And it was awesome. It was powerful. And to hear your insights, right? And to hear that, neuroscience is changing, and it's going to be great, right? It's going to be powerful. It's going to take some hard work for this to roll out, right? And gain some traction, but we're going to do it. It's going to happen. So before we go, right, I just want to tell everybody this is my call to action, right? Go all in, family. Here's what I need from you right now. Don't just close the app and move on. Let this land. 1, go get Living a Trigger-Free Life by Dr. Brian DesRoches. It's available now. If you've ever felt stuck in the same emotional pattern, loop, or trigger, this book was written for you. 2, go follow Dr. Brian. Learn from him, his work, his decades deep, and it is the real deal. His website and social will be in the notes. And 3, share this episode. Text it to the one person right now, one person you know who's still stuck. One person who needs to hear that they are not broken, that they are just working with old software. This episode might be the thing that turns something around for them. And 4, leave us a review. If this show has ever given you something, a shift, a spark, a moment of hope, 5 stars and a few words on Apple Podcasts or Spotify means the world. Put the show in front of more people who need it. And that is the gift you give to strangers who are quietly hurting. 5, come find me on Uncle Jimmy's podcast. I'm everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, the website. You can DM me. Tell me what today meant to you. I read every single one of them. And everybody, until next time, peace and love. Uncle Jimmy out. And as I say, everybody, be good and do good. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you so much.